Okay. Good evening. I am going to, I know we just started going live, but hopefully people just tune in because I'm just not the one to just sit here and wait. I just got to get stuff going. So if you're just tuning in, I want to thank you all for coming on and joining us live tonight. And I titled it "Why Don't They Just Leave?" Because I think I saw that question more often during this whole situation with Cassie and Diddy and everything that's going on. Not even just them, also with what was the little girl named Holly and I don't know her baby dad named
Yeah,
DDG or
Holly
something.
Bailey. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen it and one of the things that they must like it. They're there. Why are they still there? So on and so forth. And it just reminded me that maybe our community just needs to be constantly reminded of what abuse looks like. And it's not universal as far as everyone experiences the same thing. Everyone's going to react the same way, and everybody's going to come out at the same time or because of the same things that happened to them. We all three of us are survivors. So let me first introduce myself. I am Dr. Shonda Roberts. Um, Lisa, introduce yourself. I'm sure they know who I am. Let them know who you are first, what you do, who you are, what you're doing.
Okay, I'm Lisa Chambiano. I'm the founder and executive director of Stand Up Survivor. We've been around for a decade here, located in Central Florida, and support survivors throughout the United States and abroad.
And Melba B. Pearson Esquire.
Hey, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with these amazing, strong ladies. I am an attorney. I'm a former prosecutor who handled domestic violence crimes and domestic violence homicides, and I do a lot of legal commentary around these issues. So, looking forward to the discussion.
Yes, we have Melba for a short time. So I want to first start with, like I said, the reason for the discussion is because I felt that this conversation is necessary and it should always happen. As we know, Domestic Violence Month, Awareness Month is October, but these discussions need to happen often, just so that people are educated on the signs of abuse. If they're in an abusive relationship right now, maybe they don't know it. If you're that family member that wants to help that person out of the abusive relationship, what do I do? How do I even pick up on signs that my family members in an abusive relationship? However, I also wanted to touch on the Diddy and Cassie case, and just to talk about Cassie and maybe what she was experiencing while being a survivor and sharing her story on such a big platform while her current husband has to sit in that room. I'm sure the times I had to share my story, my platform wasn't as huge as hers, and the circumstances weren't the same. So I can't even imagine the type of stress she had to be under. So I wanted to bring on these ladies as well because they are also survivors. We're not just women who are coming on to talk about domestic violence and signs and red flags, but we've experienced it, and by the grace of God, we've overcome it, and we're all free, living healthy, wonderful lives. We're all married to wonderful men who love us down, honey. So we just want to thank God
Yes.
for taking us out of that situation and let people know that there's life after. Talk about that book too, Lisa. There's life after abuse. There's love after abuse as well. So first, now that we are talking about the Cassie case, let me start with, I was watching a few things today, Melba,
Mhm.
and I was listening to, oh God, I can't remember people's name. I'm bad with it, but I think the guy from TMZ, and he had other panelists in his discussion, and one of them was Nancy Grace. Nancy Grace be hot on fire, so
Yeah.
she was talking about it, and one of the things that he read in the from the transcript was when the prosecutor was asking Cassie about videos that he showed her. So one of the things people ask are why don't they just leave? This is my reason for it. One of the answers to my question. What did he This is the prosecutor talking to Cassie. What did he show you? Cassie, freak off videos. He played them for me on one of his laptops. He said he released them. The prosecutor asked, "How did you feel?" She said, "Trapped." Can you touch on that, Melba?
Yeah. So, first of all, watching Cassie's testimony has been incredibly, incredibly gut wrenching and heartbreaking. And so, I want to first center that and to remind folks that this is difficult stuff. This is a difficult topic, and folks may be triggered by this. Not everybody is like, oh, let me watch the latest updates because they may be still struggling with their own pain. So, I just want to like say that if anybody is, dealing with that situation, either coming out of it, currently in a situation, listen, do what's best for you. You don't need to watch this coverage. Okay. Do what's best for you. So I always want to start with that. But when she talked about feeling trapped, it's all about, because remember, domestic violence is not about love. This is about control. It ends up being cloaked as love. It's, I love you, therefore I need to keep an eye on you. I love you, that's why I will call you 50 times in a row because you haven't called me back. And it's not like you went on a trip somewhere and I'm really worried for your safety, right? This is about control and knowing where they are, what they're doing, having control over what they wear, what they eat, all of these types of things. And of course, domestic violence looks different from couple to couple because people are different, right? So it's going to show up differently. But in this particular instance, Cassie was between a rock and a hard place. She was a young girl and let's be clear, she was a young girl. Because I've had people say, oh, but y'all are babying her, this and that. She was legit a baby when she met Diddy. She was 19 years old. And from her testimony, it didn't sound like she knew a lot about drugs at the time she had first gotten with him. It didn't sound like she was very active sexually or anything like that. So there were a lot of things she just didn't seem to be aware of and just kind of, starry-eyed. Oh my gosh, I'm meeting this amazing, music mogul. I've been signed to this label. Oh my gosh, like my future is really going to take off. And at first, she didn't want to be with him because there was a huge age difference, 17 years. So she was 19 and he was 37 and she wasn't feeling that. But he consistently went after her, went after her, went after her. And she finally was like, okay, I'll date him, whatever. But once she got into his web, what he presented or how he presented himself initially quickly fell to the wayside. And so what often happens in these relationships is that, of course, if somebody beats you up in the first date, there wouldn't be a second date. Obvi, right? So what happens is that it's over time where it's sweet and love bombing and gifts and everything else. And then over time, it's controlling behavior. It's, I don't want you to be with your friends. Why do you always got to see your family? I'm your family. I love you. I want to spend more time with you. And so you almost feel guilty and you're like, oh, okay, this dude really loves me. This person really loves me. Let me spend more time with them and all of that. And slowly, 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 you become isolated from friends, from family. And next thing you know, you may be financially dependent on the person. And that's what happened to Cassie, because she now fell into a situation where she was dating him. He was paying her rent. He was taking care of her, and her romantic life, as well as her business life, her work life, were intertwined. So he had control of both. So if he said, I'm going to release videos of you doing these freak offs, she knew it meant her mama and them was going to see it. Her friends were going to see it. Any potential other record label that she might be interested in leaving Bad Boy to go to would see it as well. And that could destroy any future prospects she has. So between the shame and the economic aspect of it, she was stuck like Chuck. And it was only until she got older and finally, just really found her strength and also the assistance of now her husband, Alex Fine, she was able to leave and now have a semblance of a normal life. But to have to get up there and talk about how her former man degraded her in so many awful ways, and she had to say that while 8.5 months pregnant, her husband sitting there, probably not even knowing the full extent, because as you're testifying, not new things, but experiences come back to you, things that you manage to block out and like stick in the deepest recesses of your mind start to come back out. So there may be things, there may be incidents that she never shared with her husband that she's now sharing for the first time on the stand, and he's hearing it. And she has to go back home and be like, I'm praying that this man is not going to look at me in a different way after hearing what I've been through. And clearly, Alex Fine loves her and is taking care of her and all of that, but it's still incredibly traumatic and painful for
It's a
her
lot.
to have to relive all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel for him, but I also applaud him for being there for her and being strong for her. But like he said, I love what he said. Lisa sent me this the other day that he said Cassie saved Cassie. It takes an amount of strength to pull yourself out of that, because it's not that, and I say this often, you don't leave it when you leave an abusive relationship physically, you don't leave it emotionally at the same time. There are
Mhm.
things that happen that you can't forget, that even if you try to forget, you can't forget. There you're going to have triggers on top of triggers, even in different relationships. Even in going into my new relationship, I was mean because I wish a MF would. You know what I mean? And it you get that defense in you because it's like, who want it? Who gonna get it? Because you're not gonna try me. And that was with people, places, and things. It wasn't just in my relationship, but it was also in my work. And I lost jobs on top of jobs because I was not having it with anybody. So, when you leave that physically, there's still a whole lot of healing you have to do. And at the time, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize I needed to heal. I figured, well, I'm gone. I'm good. Let me move on. I was sadly mistaken. So Cassie has a now, and then now that when you start talking about it, because before I started talking about it, I was, I thought it was good. It was in the back of my mind. But the minute I stood on someone's podium, the minute I stood on someone's platform and spoke, nightmares came back, feelings came back. You remember all of those things and all those, my dryer, y'all, all of those instances and all those things that happen. You remember that and you start feeling it again, and it starts changing your mood, and it starts changing how you receive things. So she's now gonna have to go probably back into therapy
Mhm.
and to
Absolutely.
heal, start healing all over again, because I'm sure and I'm praying that her baby's protected from all of this, because all of those emotions are just going to come back. I mean, I'm sure it's come back to her, and now she'll start the healing process probably all over again. One last question. I know you gotta go. So I was thinking today, Melba, as I was watching bits and pieces of the trial. Yes, we know all these things happened. We know about the abuse and all this other stuff. But are the prosecutors connecting it to what he's being charged with? Do we see this as a yes? It does describe him as allegedly a horrible human being, but does it take away or help with the prosecutors charges that they have on him, what they're charging him with?
Yeah, and that's a very common question. A lot of folks are like, yeah, this isn't, he's not charged with DV. He's charged with basically sex trafficking, human trafficking, and racketeering. So what is all this? But number one, as a prosecutor, you always want to start with your strongest witness and end with your strongest witness, because those are the powerful moments that really resonate with the jury and enables them to really dive in and understand like what's happening. But also, her testimony shows the level of control that Diddy had over everyone. Now, remember, in a racketeering case, think of it, I always think and compare it to like the mob, right? If you're going after the mob, you got, the boss of bosses, right? He's dictating and telling people, go do this, go do that. He's not the one going out and doing the murders, the extortion, all that. He's directing people to do that, and he's benefiting from it, right? So that when you think of it in the mob complex, that's what racketeering is. So in this context, Diddy is the kingpin, and he has all his people regulating for him. So you had Don Richards from Danity Kane talking about how, Cassie was getting beat in front of so many different employees and staff from Bad Boy and everything else, and nobody would intervene. You have another witness who came on the stand, the former best friend, Carrie Morgan, who also was begging security. He's beating her. He's going to kill her. Do something. And they refused to intervene. So again, this shows the level of control, because if it was any of us who decided to go act out in front of our boss like that, you know, or we saw our boss act out and we intervened, we wouldn't have a problem. We wouldn't be blackballed in our industry. We wouldn't have to worry about our personal safety necessarily, because this is somebody who, again, the testimony came out that the guards were strapped, like, and that Diddy had guns all up in the spot. Like, so there is a real fear of violence. So it's that level of control, not only over Cassie, but over the entire thing,
Yeah.
and making Cassie and putting her in fear and making her do these freak offs and bring guys and girls and everything into different destinations around the country. That is what's feeding into the racketeering.
Okay.
So the prosecutions basically set the stage, and now they're going to continue to build on that, as we're hearing from the personal assistant of Diddy's, who's been testifying again to how the executives were all like, this is Diddy's kingdom. Literally, this is Diddy's kingdom. We must serve it.
Mm-hmm.
That shows the mindset that he had complete control over everything.
Everything and everyone, because so many seen so much and didn't say anything. Well, I don't want to hold you. I know you gave us a minute more than you could, but if you get unbusy before we hang up, come back. I will be here. Me and Lisa gonna go into a little more. But thank you so much for your input. We appreciate you. I love you. I always love you, my sister. Thank you so much, and then we'll
Always.
talk soon. Have a good
Always.
night.
Take care, y'all.
Um, okay, Lisa, it's me and you.
It's me, you.
Okay, so that Diddy trial, honey, has my well, I'm not gonna say it. So it just bothered me the whole time. And as I mentioned before, if people didn't hear that came on late, that I wanted to talk about this because I just wanted to make sure that we are continuing to educate our community, not just talk about stop domestic violence. How do we do it? What is domestic violence? What does it look like? It's different for every person. It doesn't always, like I said, have this. People always have the same response to it. Do you hear feedback, or is that me?
No, you sound good. I don't hear anything.
Okay, so the first question that I wanted to pose tonight with us was, I believe it is signs. So, what are signs of abusive relationships? Now, I know that I think Melba touched on it a little bit, but from your experience, because like I said, Lisa is a survivor, what are some signs of an abusive relationship?
I think one of the ones that we don't talk about so much is you begin to lose your identity in the process. Things
Yes.
that you used to do, things that you used to like to do, you're questioning them, you're wondering if they're good enough, and you find yourself complying more with the other person than you yourself, you know. And again, it's so always important to recognize that it's not physical all the time. Like she said, I
Right.
don't like where you're going, I don't like who you're with, I don't like what you're wearing. Why do you always have to go to them? They don't love you. So they're little things that start to build that entire mountain that becomes domestic violence. And one of the things she said, I thought that was so powerful, was how many people did he had under his thumb in control? You know, when you
Yeah.
really think about it, here's little Cassie compared to his entire kingdom that he was in control over. And people think that this young woman should have had the strength to leave. You know, it amazes me at the level of lack of knowledge that people have, you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm. They felt that she should have the strength to leave when she had all these people who were watching her for him. And
Yep.
her movement, whatever she did, he knew about it. And
Yep.
that's what people don't realize. They just think that, oh, she was getting money, so she was good. Listen, I'm sure if she can give all that back to not experience what she experienced, she wouldn't. But she was
Yep.
19. Who were
Right.
you and what were you doing at 19? Did you
Right.
know it all? I know. At 19, I married my abuser. Was I?
Mhm.
Was that okay for me to, even after being abused? He didn't abuse me once I got married. He was abusing me 4 years before that. But because I believed him, and then the people around him knew that he was abusing me, and they took up for him, and they made sure that he didn't get caught. They made sure that when he abused me, nobody was around. They made sure the time that he kidnapped me, that the police weren't following him. I was kidnapped before in my abuser's vehicle with him and another friend of his. I was in the middle. They snatched me, put me in the car. So
Mm.
those people, so who do you run to when the people
Yeah.
around him are the ones protecting him from the police, but also making sure that you stay in line? People
Mhm.
don't think about, they just think about that, she was there and she was doing all these freak offs because she wanted to. I'm gonna go further into that later on, because some of the responses people that she I'm sorry, responses that she was giving, people were saying that, oh, she wanted to do it. But like I said, we'll go further on that. So some the signs of abuse, I know for me, at least you can talk from your own experience. The signs of abuse were very uh subtle to me. You know what I mean? When I think back, I just thought that he was in love with me. He didn't want anyone else around me. He didn't want me talking to anybody. He didn't want me, wearing the short shorts because he wanted no one to see me. He didn't want me to, hang out with my friend today because he wanted all my time. All of those things were signs of abuse that it flew over my head. But of course, I was 15, 16 years old and I didn't know any better. I just thought I found someone who loved me and that was going to look out for me and buy me things and make me feel pretty. And so when those things started happening, they went over my head. I'm not sure how that was. How was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty similar, and I feel
Yeah.
like oftentimes it's the same thing, but
Yeah.
because of the lack of knowledge and the ignorance around domestic violence, we don't even recognize it. And that's
Yeah.
why you said you were 15 years old, and
Yeah.
statistics are 1 in 3 teenagers experiencing abuse. But if we're not telling them that, hey, they shouldn't be doing this, they shouldn't be. The young people have this thing about they're on the phone constantly all the time, or they're tracking each other's location. Like that's not normal behavior.
Right.
But if they recognize it as it being cute, then they're doing it more often than anything. You know what I mean? And so I think mine were pretty much the same. One of the things was isolation. We needed to
Yeah.
move because I was too close to my family. So we moved to a different state, to really focus on the family, things like that, that I didn't recognize as abuse. And that's before a hit was ever given,
Yeah.
and so recognizing things like that. Controlling who we talk to, what I look like, the way that I dress, all those kind of things. But again, like you said, it's love. It's my husband. I don't want to have any issues. And so I'm just going to comply. But I think
Hmm.
pretty much, to be honest, after, we've both been doing this for a long time. And
Hmm.
oftentimes the survivor stories start out just like that,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
just like that. Abusers are not, I always say this, abusers are not coming up with new and unique ways to
Right.
abuse.
Now that's true.
They're not.
That's true. The only thing, and now that when I do talk to our youth in schools and wherever, the ways of oh my goodness, the ways of being possessive and controlling and stalking are different now because
They're
now they're doing it on social
different.
media and they have the find my iPhone thingamajiggy and they track them different ways, but they mask it as
Mhm.
let's share location, baby. I want to know where you are all the time. And
I think it's
yeah, not saying that.
craziness.
Right.
Why?
And I think that every time we got to be careful. We got to pay attention to red flags all the time because if that happens with another type of behavior, then yes, you need to start paying attention. I always tell our young, our youngins that you are supposed to have your own privacy. No one has
Absolutely.
not no one. Your boyfriend or girlfriend should not know your every move, your every movement, everything you do, and everybody you're hanging with, because it does become possessive and controlling after a
Correct.
while.
Correct.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree with that. So next question was, why is leaving abuse so hard? That was another one of the topics that people go back and forth on social media with this. Like, why didn't she just get up and go? She could leave. She was an adult. She was, she was free to go. There were times where she wasn't with him, but what the people failed to realize, what I learned even doing domestic violence or talking about domestic violence, was the phrase learned helplessness. I didn't know
Mm,
what that was. I had no idea what that was growing
yeah.
up. I didn't know. I've never heard about it. Matter of fact, until I started educating myself on how to have these conversations, that's when I learned about it. And I believe there was, I may be saying it wrong, so you have to Google after I'm done. But this is what I learned, that there was a study on a professor or somebody did with dogs in a cage, and they had the shock, either a shock collar on them or the cage was built some type of way to shock them, and then they would allow them to leave in and out of the cage, but then they would
Hmm.
shock them, and they
Hmm.
would know getting shocked meant, if you try to leave out the cage, you're gonna get shocked. And it
Hmm.
happened so much that even when the shocker was turned off, they would
Hmm.
not go out the cage because they learned
Hmm.
if you step out that cage, you're gonna get shocked. And I
Yep.
think they did the study over 200 dogs, and maybe 192 of the dogs did not go back out the cage, and seven of them kept trying, and kept trying. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So that's what learned helplessness is. And for me, it was instilled in me very early on to don't talk back, to don't do anything I don't tell you to do. And and him doing that was the first time I said something to him that he didn't like in front of people that he did not like. He took me down the street into woods, beat me up, put me back in
Mm-hmm.
the car, and drove me back to where he was, to the location we were just at, to show them this is
Mm-hmm.
what I had to teach her a lesson. And nobody in that group of friends that he had even looked at me to say, "Are you okay? What happened?" They saw that I was disheveled. They saw that I was crying. No, and they knew what happened, and nobody said a thing. So he instilled that in me very early on. What would be? So
Yep.
for me, that was why leaving my abusive relationship was so hard. Go ahead.
Mhm. I mean, I think the dog example, I've heard it before, and it's exactly correct.
Yeah.
You knew better, so you knew better than now to talk to him crazy in front of other people because you now knew the consequences of what that would look like. And oftentimes, when they're talking about why Cassie didn't leave and they connected to money, it literally just makes me want to scream because, like you said, what you go through is not worth a dime. And people are talking about how she got $20 million. $20 million could never, ever, ever compare to the abuse that she went through. So you could keep your
Yeah.
money. It's not even comparable, but when we
Exactly.
look at, I mean, please, when you think about everything that she went through and everything, victim survivors of abuse go through, the money is nothing. The money is a slap on the wrist or a way for you to pay, but it will never equate to the abuse that is endured. And so for me, I had young children. And so for me, it was like, number one, I was married and I grew up in a Christian home. Divorce was not an option. It just was not an option. And so for me, I just stayed because that wasn't an option for me. But also I had young children. And for me, I wanted the children to grow up in the home with both their parents. And so, and then again, I didn't have money or a job. I had no way to take care of myself or the children. And the third part too is that I loved my partner. It wasn't even though, and people need to really understand that. When you listen to some of Cassie's testimony, she talks about going back to him after these times because she did
Yeah.
genuinely love him. That's something to understand about victim survivors is that we have hearts. We're people in
Hmm.
relationships, and abuse is not always bad. No,
Oh,
she wasn't getting beaten every day. No, that wasn't happening every day. There were times that it's good. And so oftentimes when survivors come to us and they tell us, well, he was really great last week, but that was just last week. You have to understand that it's going to be abusive again. And so for me, it was just like and the fear of the unknown. If I leave, what is going to happen? My self-worth was nothing. He already told me no one else would want me. I couldn't go anywhere or do anything. I was already nothing. And so that is what played in my mind. I was actually 19 as well when we met. And so what choices did I have? And that was what I believed. I like to say that when I'm teaching, abuse starts as like a chipping away of clay. Right. So
hmm
they begin to chip you and form you to become who they want you to be. And by the time then they fashioned you into who they want you to be. And then you have no identity for yourself. So when you're
right.
looking at Cassie, when you're looking at Shonda, when you're looking at Lisa, well, why didn't they just leave? We don't even know who we are when we're looking at ourselves in the mirror. We wouldn't even know where to start. And also another thing you talked about with the young people, there's a lot of sexting going along. There's a lot of pictures and photography going through, just like Cassie. And so also, like, what if you expose it? What if you tell somebody? What if you show somebody these videos? I'm now exposed. So it's safer for me to stay in the relationship than it is for me to leave.
Yes.
So
Because that blackmail is something
it's a
that's
big deal.
it's a big deal, especially with her in the industry that they're in. And I know one of the transcripts, she's on the stand, and he sat next to her and showed her the video. I think I just read that he
Yeah,
showed her
yeah,
the
yeah.
video
Mhm.
of their freak offs, and that was just telling her basically, "Don't play with me. I will
Mhm.
expose all of this if that happens." And I'm sure more for her is her family seeing it. You
Of
know what I mean?
course.
As far
Her
as her
mother.
family and her mother, her father, or whoever that she
Yeah.
loves, she's close to. She doesn't want them to see that.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of factors that come into play when you ask, why is the leaving abuse so hard?
Mhm.
Because sometimes you get sucked up into all of that's going on that you don't, as you mentioned, you don't know who you are anymore. If I
Yeah.
leave, then what? What do I
Then
do?
what? And
You
I
know what I
want
mean?
to say something about, like, even to any survivors that are listening now are going to watch it. Those people who love you and care about you, those
Yeah.
videos are not going to be a reason they want you to stay. Any
Yeah.
pictures or any blackmail or anything that they may be holding over your head, yes, it may hurt. Yes, it may be embarrassing. It may be traumatic and devastating for them to reveal it. But your life is way
Yeah.
more important, and they would rather have you. And I'm telling you right now, as a mother and as a daughter of someone who experienced domestic violence, I'm like, when I tell my mother the story, she's like, I just wish you would have told me earlier so I could have helped you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
while we're trying to hide it and keep it a secret, there's someone who's willing to help us and does not want us to go through another second because of blackmail or for any other reason. So,
Right. I agree. Thank you for saying that because that is true. And that's a lot of times people just stay. I know for me, I stayed because I didn't want them to know he was abuser. I didn't want them to know that
mhm.
I was
Yeah.
going through that because on the outside, aesthetically, he was taking care of me. You know what I mean? I hair was done, nails, clothes, cars. I had it all. And for me, it was more I didn't want you all to think that he was doing this to me or know that he was doing this to me because then now if everyone else stops liking him, I'm gonna have to stop liking him too. You know what I mean?
Oh
Because
yeah,
I
absolutely.
felt yes, because if you long as you all don't know, I could hide what's going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We know the statistics that victims go back at least 7 times before leaving for
Mhm.
good. I think
Mhm.
I probably quadrupled
Right.
that number. I think
Right.
7 times is a low number
Right.
because, like as you say, abuse is not always bad. It's not that they're
Mm.
getting beat every minute, every hour of the day. We went on trips, we did things. You know, he
Mhm.
always took me shopping and bought me things to confuse me into
Absolutely.
thinking that our relationship was good, and
Yeah.
that's a lot of times it's confusing. I heard Cassie say when the
Mm.
prosecutor asked her, I think she said that he violated her one time, and he asked her, "Why did you go back to him after?" She said, "After that," she said, "I loved him for 10 years. We've been together 10 years. I loved him." And
Correct.
that is scary, but it's true. Psychologically, you are still somehow feeling like you owe this person something
Mhm.
or I
Mhm.
was in love with them, so I have to keep
Mhm.
going back to them. It
Mhm.
takes a lot of strength to
Mm.
finally break free mentally
Yeah.
from that
Yeah.
abusive relationship and that form of
Mhm.
thinking.
I love when you said out, it was confusing. And
Yes,
I wish that like that in and of itself is a massive conversation in and of itself because it's confusing. It's like love, hey, love, I slap you, but then I kiss you. I buy you things and I kick you, then I hurt you. It's this weird dynamic that goes on, and you're not really even sure what to do because like we
right.
said, it's not happening every day. They said they were sorry, they took me shopping, now what do I do?
Yeah,
And so to say that she stayed because she liked her the money, that it's just a level of ignorance that just blows my mind. It is confusing, and every day is not a bad day when you're
every
with
day.
an abuser, but the bad day is enough of a reason to
Yes,
leave. And I love it. It's not always safe to leave. It is literally statistically the most dangerous
the
time
most.
for a survivor to leave. And if you look in the news, right, there's a ton of victims who decided to leave, who had restraining orders, who left and were still killed as a result. And so it's not something that we you can take lightly. It's really not. You know, Cassie talks a little bit about how threats went out. The people would literally go find her when she
Hmm.
left him and drag her back. You know, it's a deadly moment when you decide to leave. It is it you know that you're risking life and death in that very moment, you know?
Yes,
So
like I said, when I got kidnapped, my abuser came with somebody else to get me and bring me back. He'll pop up at my job. He would pop up at places where I was hanging out. I was walking in the club one time, and he was standing at the door,
mm,
and people in the club at the door, the bouncers allowed him to drag me away. Like when I tell you nobody said anything, it was after a while, it becomes your new norm. You be like, okay, I'm not gonna run anymore. Why
yeah.
run? He's gonna find me. Yes, I got up, went to work every day. I came home. I went back to the house. I was free to leave every day. But
Yeah.
if I didn't leave, if I stayed gone, he was coming to find me again. You
Yeah.
know, so after a while, you get tired of running. You get tired of the running away and being found again and being dragged back. This I can even imagine with the type of power he had, how her trying to leave affected her so much. And as Kim said, as you said, that's the scariest time when you're leaving. The statistics are 75% of victims are murdered after leaving
Mhm.
an abusive
Mhm.
relationship. Some have
Mhm.
restraining orders. So
Yes,
that
some
is the most dangerous time. So it's not always that you just pick your bag up and say, okay, I'm leaving you today. It doesn't work like that.
yeah.
Someone has a question here. Miss Terry Smith Williams, did you ever feel sorry for your abuser? I did. I don't know
Yeah,
about you, Lisa.
absolutely.
I don't know
Okay.
about you. I did.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I definitely did too. I'm like, because for my situation, my ex grew up in a home where he saw abuse. So his father abused his mother. So, oh my goodness, it's not his fault. He didn't really mean to do it. He saw it growing up. And I was like, wait a minute, after a while, that wasn't going to work because now I have a son and it's up to me to decide if I want my son to repeat that cycle. But I think one of the biggest things is that we have to remember that they're really not sorry. I
Right.
don't no one gets to tell me it's because they were drunk, they have a mental health disorder. I don't want to hear it. I've seen it all in over a decade. It is abuse is an intentional act and it is preventable. It is an intentional choice that they use. They weren't too drunk, they weren't too high, they weren't too devastated as a child. It's a choice, because the truth of the matter is they don't go around beating up their bosses or their friends next door. They
Come on now.
strategically do it to the person that they know that they can control and that they've molded to accept it. So yes, that's, and I think oftentimes that could be a reason that we stay, because we feel sorry for them. They can
Hmm.
even cry. Like I've seen all the things, I've heard it
Sure.
all, and we stay, and then we realize, wait a minute, but who's feeling sorry for me?
Right.
So the answer to that for me was yes.
Yes, definitely. And my abuser, girl, he even got on his knees, grabbed the Bible, pulled me down on my knees, and said, "Girl, we're gonna pray because I don't want to do this to you, and I don't know what's wrong with me, but I know God's gonna fix me and change me. I need you to believe." And I got on my knees and I prayed with him because I said, well, maybe this is it. This is him.
Yeah.
He's not gonna do it anymore. 24 hours later, he was back beating on me again. And guess whose fault it was? Mine, because he always blamed it on me. It's always my fault. It's always because I said something or I did something or I wasn't where he wanted me to be at a certain time. And as you said, it's not a mistake. They do it on purpose. They intentionally do it. They know they're going to do it, and they don't want to stop. And because anybody who wants to stop and wants to get help will do that. But yeah, I to the answer that question, yes, Terry, both of us did feel sorry for them, and I think that's part of that psychological abuse, because you also start to take the blame that it's maybe I did say something wrong today. Maybe I should not have been over here. Maybe I shouldn't want to go hang out with Lisa today. It is my fault. And then you start thinking that you can fix it by not saying those things. Maybe I shouldn't say anything today. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to come home. I'm going to make sure this is ready. I'm going to make sure this is good so that doesn't happen. But then when you do all those things and it still happens, I need survivors and victims to know it's not your fault. You are not to blame for any of that. And
Yeah.
and well, we'll get to that part, but you're not to blame for any of that. Don't take that on. It's not your fault.
Mm-mm.
Um, trauma bonding. Let's move on.
Mm. Yeah.
How? Wait, let me ask the right question. How to break a trauma bond? Because we know that feeling sorry for your abuser and all that are signs of trauma bonding.
Mhm.
How would you say that we can break a trauma bond, Lisa?
Well, first thing I'll say two things. Number one, you need truth around you. Truth.
Yes.
That is not healthy. They should not talk to you like that. They should not hit you. And I don't care how many, if you don't want to hear it, it doesn't matter how much it hurts. You have got to allow yourself to hear truth. Until you hear the truth, the trauma that they've bonded you to will not leave, because they're lies. All of it is a lie. But until you're
Yeah.
able to hear the truth, you won't hear it. And I think the second component of that is detox. It's like
Yeah.
coming off of alcohol or a drug. That trauma bond has got to be broken, and you have got to stay away from that person. Now, I know you may even have physical withdrawals. You may be sick to your stomach, devastated, crying, be broke, have nowhere to. It's a trauma bond. It's
Hmm.
literally has the trauma has bonded you. For example, when I said earlier, they slap you, they say I'm sorry, they hug you. They slap you, they say I'm sorry, they hug you. You have all of these things. You're trauma bonded to them. Oh, growing up, they had a hard life, so you feel so bad for them. They really didn't mean to do it. We have a family together. So the trauma of what they put you through, what they have put you through, has bonded you to them. To
Yeah.
separate from that, it will require you to stay away from them. They would
Yes.
require you to not pick up the phone call, not stalk them on social media, not read their text messages, to stay away from them, to get away from them, to not worry about the new supply, the new relationship they're in. And it will hurt. It will hurt.
Definitely.
It's like taking super glue, right? If you super glued your hands together or your eyelids shut, and you just rip them apart, we're talking about it hurt. It's painful.
It's
But
painful.
eventually, over time, it will begin to heal and clarity will come to you. The cloud of trauma, the cloud of pain will begin to dissipate. And you're going to be like, did I actually? Now, Shonda, when we talk about it, we're like, I know we didn't
Girl.
put up with it. Like, I know. And that's why when you said earlier, like you wanted to fight everybody, that's me. You cannot talk to me like that. Don't look at me like that. Don't, because I wasn't tolerating it ever again. So
Right.
when you say that part of your story, I crack up like, yeah, we fighting. We're gonna
Yeah.
fight because you're
it
not
was
gonna
it
stop.
was on with whoever and whenever. And I wanted to give the clinical term for trauma bonding to our
Yes.
audience. Being trauma bonded to someone means developing a strong emotional attachment to an abuser or someone who causes you harm, even when they are also abusive or manipulative. So trauma bonding is not a fancy term people like to use. It's a real thing. And as Lisa said, getting over it was almost as hard as being in it, because it's like, why am I crying? Why do I miss him? Why do I Because you were emotionally attached to that trauma.
Mhm.
And you start to thinking that I can't do this without him or her. I'm not going to be able to move on without him or her. And you obviously, we are proof that
Proof.
you can, absolutely can. It may not feel good. That super glue is going to hurt like
Mm.
hell. That super glue going to feel
Right.
like the worst pain ever.
Mhm.
But once you get that clarity, as you
Mm.
said, Lisa,
Mhm.
that clarity make you get mad at yourself. It will
Baby.
make you- they won't even look the same to you
No,
anymore.
no, no, no.
They
Mm-mm.
won't look the same to you anymore. And you'll be like, why did I put myself through that? But even in that, it's important not to blame yourself in that time as well. Because I went through a phase of, you were so stupid. What were you thinking? I was saying those things that people were saying when they would hear my story. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I had to forgive myself for even the pain I felt I put myself through. I had to
Yeah,
forgive myself for that
absolutely.
because I would also blame myself a lot of times that you had every opportunity to leave, you didn't leave,
Mhm.
because I did not even realize at that time that I was in this relationship that eventually gave up the fight. My learned helplessness took over. It
I
took
know.
over everything
Mhm.
I knew. I knew better. I
Mhm.
was I was sorry, the comments threw me off. I was raised by none of my brothers, honey. Listen, I was about that
Mhm.
life.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean? So I wasn't scared, but like I said early on, he instilled
yeah.
a fear in me that I couldn't shake. It was
Mhm.
something that I couldn't get rid of. And then every time, as we mentioned earlier, the abuse wasn't always bad. So it would confuse you and you didn't know where you was coming or going. So for
Yeah.
those leaving abusive relationship have left, trying to leave, I'm sorry, have left already, I would definitely request or suggest that you all seek therapy. Seek
Please,
help. Speak to someone about how
please.
do I get past this, because it's not easy to do. It's not something that you can just shake on your own and be okay and move on. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some
Yeah,
relearning things. It's going to take some time to relearn who you are.
yeah,
I would suggest professional help, support groups, and definitely, as you said, Lisa, you need trusted individuals around you, people
Mhm.
who you can call and say, you know what, I'm feeling like I want to answer his call today. I need to come over with
Right.
you. I need to talk to you. You need somebody to
Yeah.
talk you off the ledge, because there are gonna
Yes.
be some days where you're going to want to answer that phone call. It happened to me. It happened to
Mhm.
Lisa, and it could have
Mhm.
ended my life. You know what I mean? Because I was
Mhm.
out the relationship. I moved on, went on about my business, and
Mhm.
that one phone call I took could have ended my life. And I
Okay.
thank God it didn't.
Mm.
You about to say something, Lisa? I thought I heard you say
No,
something.
I'm just like,
Okay, okay.
no, and
Yeah,
I agree too. I was divorced at this, and he reached back out. I'm a changed person. I'm a changed man. All of these things. Drop
yeah,
everything I was doing to go back. It didn't last a whole week. I was
yeah,
like, Lord, I wasted all of it, because the thing is, statistically speaking, it's an extremely small percentage of abusers that will change. Because
yeah,
what they do is they just find the next person who doesn't know that much about abuse, and they hone in, or they love
yes,
bomb them till they get in. So they always know that there's someone else who they'll be able to trap and abuse.
yeah.
So that's why we do what we do.
Yes, definitely. And have to keep doing that. This whole situation reminded me of why we're not talking. You know what I mean? This conversation needs to keep happening. We get too relaxed and too comfortable with, and I know for me, they know what it is. They should know by now. People still
They
don't
don't.
know.
No,
People still
they
don't
don't.
know. We can't assume that people do know. You know what I mean? Also, I wanted to add, for getting over or trying to break a trauma bond, prioritize your physical health. Engage in activities that nourish your body.
That's
I
good.
know for me, I know I used to teach a managing aggressive behaviors class, and one of the things that is across the board is take care of you.
Yes.
Prioritize self care. Engage in hobbies and activities that make you feel good. Because when you're in those
Mhm.
relationships, you sometimes take away everything that made you,
You do.
everything that you, girl, I didn't know I could sing till I left the relationship. Didn't know
Really?
I
And you can sing.
I didn't start singing until after I left. I may
Wow.
have like dibbled and dabbled a second or here or there,
Uh,
but like to really like know that I had what I feel, a voice. I ain't trying to brag. I'm just saying I could do a
yeah,
little
as a boy,
something.
yeah,
You
sing, you sing, honey.
I
Hmm.
did not realize it or wasn't
Wow.
fully nourished until I
Yeah,
left.
yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? And just
Hmm.
finding out what you like to do and who you
Yeah,
are as a person out of that abusive relationship will help in your healing
yeah.
process. But
Huge.
definitely self love and self care will be one of your biggest things you need to do. Take yourself out on a date because
Yeah.
that's going to be hard to do. Is being with yourself because you're used to this person who's always there telling you when to move and when to,
Hmm.
when to do something. So
Hmm.
definitely practice self love and nourish yourself.
I
Now,
would agree with that. I would just say real quick, one of the things that I started to do is exactly what you said, like go out by myself. I was so afraid to be alone, right?
yeah,
And so I would go to the movies by myself. And the first time it was cringy, it was emotional, I was crying. Then I go to dinner by myself. Then I'm thinking, what are people thinking about me? I'm sitting here by myself. They probably think I'm this loser. Listen,
right.
I love being alone right now. It is my happy place being by myself, but it was a process. It wasn't always like that. And so I think that little things like you said, like I didn't even know my favorite color, what I like to eat, like seriously. So
We
I
know
tried
my
different
favorite
nail
color is.
colors. Huh? Say
We
that
know what
again.
my favorite color is.
Yes, we do. I mean, so it's like slowly getting to know yourself all over again because their goal
Yeah.
is to strip that identity away from you, and it's
Yes.
your job at the end of like you find it again. Take your time and
Yeah.
find it until you feel like begin to feel like yourself. So
I agree. It takes time, but you can get there. I promise you, you can. And definitely, you want to develop healthy relationships.
yes,
Anything or anyone that is not helping you in your healing process, get rid of it as
they
soon as
gotta go.
possible. They gotta go. And again,
Yeah.
person, places, or things. If you go to, there are certain places I didn't want to go because it was a trigger. It reminded me of him. It reminded me of abuse, and
Mm,
friendships as well.
yeah.
There can be friendships that are abusive and you don't even realize it. And
So
some
true.
are mainly emotionally abusive. And
Mm,
you don't even realize it because you're used to being in that type of environment. Check
mm,
your group, check your circle, and make sure that
yeah.
you're not in any situation that's going to affect or interfere with your healing or affect your mental health. You
That's
have
good.
to make sure you keep yourself around healthy relationships. That's very important.
I love that. And you can't be afraid to just walk away from things that no longer
Yeah.
suit you. And I want to add, like, be really careful about the relationships that you go into after that. Because where one relationship may have been physically abusive, another one could be a different type of just unhealthy or abusive in a different form where they don't put their hands on you, but they're emotionally or they're calling you out your name or minimize
Yeah.
you, whatever it is, just be very careful. Don't say, oh, well, this is better than the last one. Is it healthy or is it not healthy? That's
Mm-hmm.
the question. And don't be afraid to be alone. Being alone is just so golden sometimes because you really get to hone in on who you are. So, and like you said, like for myself, like if I'm not comfortable in a space, I'm not going. If you make me feel uncomfortable being in a relationship with you, I'm not going
I
to be
ain't
in a
going.
relationship with you anymore. I'm at the point of I'm not going to do it. And so, recovering people pleaser here because survivors are, we want everyone to be happy. When you get
Whew.
to the point where I'm a priority and I don't feel comfortable going to this store or this place or this group of people, I'm just not going to do it anymore. And that's your power, that's your boundary. And I always encourage you to take it back. When you start setting these boundaries, you're going to ruffle some
Girl.
feathers, but ruffle them anyway because you
Yes.
matter. So,
Yes. Be kind to yourself and
yeah.
acknowledge your strength. Acknowledge that I overcame this
Mhm.
and I got it. You know what I mean? And I can do it and I'm proud of me. Every goal that you hit or every goal that you make, pat yourself on the back
Celebrate.
for it. Don't be
Absolutely.
afraid to say, "Yeah, I'm that girl. I did that,"
That's right.
because you're going to be your biggest cheerleader.
Yep.
When there's no one else around to cheer for you, you have to know how to cheer for you.
Yes.
And that's a part of the self care as well. But all these things are going to help you break that trauma bond. Trauma bond is such a strong bond that
Yes.
I didn't, like I said, I didn't realize what I was going through. Like, why do I feel this way? Why do I, feel sorry for him, or why are these things happening to me? Didn't realize it. But when I got on that path of healing and learning who I was and doing all these things, I was able to break that bond. So you can definitely break the trauma bond. Just wanted to make sure we, tell people that it's possible to do. And
Yeah.
last but not least, how to convince someone to leave an abusive relationship. How do we do that, Lisa?
The
'Cause-
convince is an interesting word because you can't really
right.
convince them to leave. Yeah, you can't. I
I was
always say that.
intentional with convince. I was
Yeah,
intentional
yeah.
with
And I
convince.
love it too because people always ask that question. How do I get them to leave? How do I make them, how do I convince them that it's a bad person? You're talking about the person that they're in a relationship or that they love or they have a child with and they've been with for how long, and you want them to just leave them. It doesn't work like that. You know, I shared this post and said, you guys expect Cassie to just walk away. You can't even tell your nail tech that you didn't like the design she put on your nails.
Oh,
Right. But y'all want us to make these big, huge decisions, and you can't even tell anybody you don't like the way they talk to you. Let's be honest.
yeah.
And so I think it's really important to recognize that there's a couple things that I tell parents or friends of family members or people that really want to help someone who's in an abusive relationship. We don't know what we don't know. I didn't know I was
Right.
in an abusive relationship. I didn't even know it was abuse. And so maybe you slide them a pamphlet, show them, Paint to Purposes website. Just give them the information so that
Mhm.
they can make the decision for themselves. Oftentimes, over a decade of work, I hear survivors say the only reason I left is because the police were involved. The only reason I left is because DCF took my children. The only reason I left is because I decided one day I was ready. And it has to sometimes be that they have decided within themselves that escaping or leaving is worth the risk of that, and that has to be a decision they make. You cannot and will not convince them to leave. That give them the power to make the decision for themselves to lead the situation, empower them, provide them resources, give them shelters or financial assistance, help them get their kids in school, help them find a job, help them know that they can leave. And you empower them to do that and give them this. Don't just say, just leave. Oh, they're such a terrible person. Well, are you giving me a place to live? Are you going to help pay my bills? Can you take care of my children? If you're not offering me solutions, you're really just speaking hot air. I've assessed my situation, and staying in this abusive relationship or this relationship where abuse exists is easier for me than it is to leave. The moment you're able to show me something else, and I always, part of my story is like, that's why I love Shonda. You know how we do these things? It was seeing a woman on a video like this tell her story. And that's the night that I picked up my children and I left. So I know, Shonda, we don't play with stuff like this. We know that we're going to save some lives through this conversation. And so if it's us, let us be the reason that you say no more for yourself and your children.
Right. It's, 'cause I always hear people, say, well, she must like it. She's still there. No, that's not why she's still there, because she like it. As you say, what is the option for her to leave?
Options.
Yes, the most logic answer is to save her life. We understand that. But when you're in that situation, you don't think like that. You're thinking, I don't want to put my kids in a shelter. I don't want
Mhm,
to move my children out of the only home, or the only in their own bed, and things,
mhm.
things like that, because now you're thinking about, okay, if I leave now, I'm going to run to this shelter where I may not get along with this person. I have to do this, I have to do that, and it's a lot for people. And if you're single, a lot of times that may be the only person that they have. Where are they
Yeah,
going to go?
so
So
true.
if you're that person on the outside looking in, help them find those resources.
Right,
Help
right.
them to understand, okay, what's your plan? The
Mm,
one thing we talk about on one of our workshop is hashtag exit plan.
mhm.
What's the exit plan for them when they leave? So if
Right.
someone comes to you and say, hey, I need to leave this relationship, but I don't know what to do, help them figure it out. If you don't know, find someone that'll help them. Contact Stand Up Survivor, contact Pain to Purpose.
Mhm.
I'm going to put the number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. There are numbers you can call that can help you map out a plan on how to leave, because as we said
Mhm.
earlier, victims, that's the scariest time for them to leave, is when they're I'm sorry scariest time for them is when they're leaving. So you have to make sure that you're doing it safely. You can't just
Absolutely.
jump up, grab your things, and go. There has to be a plan of
Mhm.
where you're going, who's going to know where you are, and if you're employed,
Yeah.
I know it may be embarrassing.
Oh, please, Shonda, continue. Tell the people.
Tell your boss, tell somebody, the security guard at the front, tell somebody. I can't tell you how many times my abuser came to my jobs. There was a time I went on my lunch break and I came back, and there was uh I think teddy bear or something inside the kitchen. Where is from? Your boyfriend brought him. And I
Wow.
didn't tell them that I was hiding from him. So he was able to walk up in there. You understand what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
people, you have to make sure that you let people know
Yeah.
what's going on with you. That's the only way people can know how to help you.
Yeah. And it's just not a secret that should be kept.
Right.
And oftentimes what we notice these days, Sean, is that they will shoot up the whole place. They don't care who's involved. So not just are you putting yourself at risk, but everyone else at risk too. And once you
Yeah.
equip them with the information to know that, hey, this is not safe, this is dangerous, you let them know that maybe they can assist in protecting you. And then I want to add too with the jobs. If you escape your abuser, please know you may not be able to go to their job tomorrow. They know where you work. And that's
Yeah.
part of contacting an organization to help you do a safety exit plan. It's very, very important. This is my job. I can't lose my job. Yes. But if they know where you work, they know where you live, they know where the kids go to school, you still are at risk, even though you may have left the home. So having a
Mhm.
safety plan is critically important. I also want to add, if you cannot have a safety plan and you have to leave in the middle of the night in an emergency, do that. I've run out of the house with no shoes on, with a baby in my arms. I've done all of the things. And so sometimes that's what you have to do in order to save your life in that moment. But if you can, strategize with an agency that can help you do a safety exit plan.
Definitely. We our not our organization has a hashtag exit plan workshop. We're having it again this year. I will definitely put it on our website before the event happens. So make sure you stay in touch with our websites. Both of them. We'll make sure we give our information before we leave. But Lisa, I thank you for this conversation. I definitely wanted to just highlight just certain things, and hopefully I answered that question for people. We answered that question. Why don't they just leave? It's just not that easy to just get up and go.
Mhm.
And yes, there may have things that Cassie did that weren't that she didn't want to do, but when you're in that situation and you've been threatened,
Yep,
and you, like I said, you have a constant fear of physical abuse and things that may or may not happen if you don't, then sometimes you would do things that you don't want to do. I did things in
absolutely.
my relationship I did not want to do, but he didn't have to tell me to do them. I just knew if I didn't do them, what would happen? What were the consequences? So let's be not so quick to judge. And I'm not just talking about Cass. I'm talking about any victims in this situation, any survivors that you may know. Don't be so quick to judge them, and have some compassion, have some empathy. Even if you may not 100% agree about what they did or why they stayed or how long they stayed, have some compassion, have some empathy, or try to have some knowledge about why they stayed. And if you're not going to help, you're not going to do anything, then just be quiet.
I was just stay quiet. I just stay quiet, because I promise you, if you even sat down with Cassie or any other survivor, you would understand completely why they did what they did. All the people had weapons all around them. Like you said, I did things I didn't want to do either. Did I have a choice? I didn't have a choice. What was my choice? You know what I mean? And so when you weigh that consequence, and we tell survivors this: you do what you have to do to survive. You may
Yeah.
be going through hell, but we want you to live to see another day. So if you have to do this and you get through the day, we want you to live. And so that if you did, she did what she had to do to survive, and she is one of the bravest women I've ever met, I've ever seen, I've ever heard
Yes.
of. And we salute her. We continue to send her strength and pray for her and empower her, because you guys, you think it's easy sitting on that stand. You have no idea. You just wouldn't even begin to be able to understand. And having to
None.
face him after all these years, but your strength, her strength, her husband is there, who's her strong, and me and Shada, we love our husbands, and those are our strong points in the moments when we're not strong. And so Alex Fine is doing a great job of being a real man that will support a woman who has endured trauma.
Yes. I'm going to put up our information. Your website is standupsurvivor.org.
.org. That's it. Yep.
Okay. Um, Pain the Purpose website is pain, the number two, purpose76.org. And Stand Up Survivor is Stand Up Survivor. That's spelled out right. I was typing so
Yeah.
fast. .org. I want to just check our comment section. Does anybody have any questions in this comment section before we log off? Me and Lisa, or Lisa and I, let me speak properly. Lisa and I did this maybe a couple of times a
Yeah.
few years ago.
Yeah. We did.
Maybe it's something we need to revisit every few months, every
Absolutely.
quarter or something, just to keep the
Absolutely.
conversation going. And just because we want to make sure that we touch on different. I mean, abuse is going to be abuse. The conversation is will be the same, but there may be a need to revisit for
Yeah.
whatever reason is going on. So we will definitely make sure
Absolutely.
that as things come up, we will make sure we try to meet again and talk and try to help some people out, because there'll be new victims. Unfortunately,
Absolutely.
there'll be new victims.
Absolutely. And I
And
think it's
fortunately,
important. Yeah, and I
no,
think it's
go ahead.
important that women know that women of color, Black women, brown women, we go through abuse at alarming rates. And what
Mhm.
happens in the house does not stay in the house. What happens in the house could kill you. And so, talking about this conversation, showing our faces, Shonda, we know that we're going to save lives through this conversation. So, know
Right.
that we survived, and we want you to survive too. It's not a secret that should be kept. We're here to help you.
Yes, definitely. So I thank you all so much. Thank you, y'all for tuning in. Please share it. I think Facebook now keeps up videos for 30 days. So please share this to anyone that may need the help. If you have any further questions, reach out to us. We're both on social media. You also can contact us through our website. I'll put it up one more time. Pain to Purpose is pain, the number two, purpose76.org. And Stand Up Survivor is standupsurvivor.org. Thank you all so very much. At least don't hang up because I got to
Okay.
talk to you about something. But thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate you. Good night,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.